Thomas sat in his room, mind racing as usual, trying to make sense of the conflicts tearing apart regions across the globe. Each news headline seemed worse than the last. Gaza, Ukraine, Yemen, Sudan. How had the world reached such a boiling point? More importantly, why? Who benefits from this endless cycle of destruction? The Gaza conflict. The latest developments in Gaza weighed heavily on his mind. In October 2023, Hamas launched a devastating attack on Israel, killing over 1,300 people and taking hostages. Israel responded with a severe military campaign, including ground invasions and a complete siege of Gaza. Civilians on both sides were trapped in cycles of fear, anger, and devastation. Thomas thought about the lives lost, homes destroyed, and families shattered. The Bible often spoke of the sanctity of peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. Matthew 5:9. Yet here, peace felt like a distant dream. Meanwhile, arms manufacturers, contractors, and political powers profited greatly from the conflict, supplying weapons and services that perpetuated the war's 28 source. Ukraine's struggle. In Ukraine, a full-scale war with Russia had dragged on since February 2022. Cities were bombed, families displaced, and fields burned. This conflict also lined the pockets of weapons manufacturers and geopolitical players, while ordinary people bore the brunt of suffering. Thomas remembered Ecclesiastes 3:8, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. He wondered if humanity would ever find its way back to the latter 27S source. Yemen, the forgotten war. Yemen's civil war, often overshadowed by other conflicts, was another tragedy. Bombings by Saudi-led coalitions, famine, and disease plagued the population. Profiteers selling weapons and fuel ensured the war continued despite catastrophic humanitarian consequences. Proverbs 21:6 echoed in Thomas's mind, "The getting of treasures by a lying tongue is a fleeting vapor and a snare of death." This verse seemed to perfectly describe those fueling wars for profit. 27 source, Sudan and others. The crisis in Sudan also reflected a lust for power and resources. Battles between rival factions had turned cities into war zones, forcing millions to flee. Thomas saw parallels to James 4:1-2. What causes quarrels and fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? You desire and do not have, so you murder. From oil to minerals, these conflicts enriched a select few while devastating the many. 26 source, 7 source. Who gains from war? Thomas realized there were always those who stood to profit from war. Defense contractors sold arms, mercenary companies provided forces, and politicians gained power or leverage. He felt anger welling up. How could humanity betray itself so thoroughly? But he also found solace in the words of Jesus, who warned of the corruption of greed. You cannot serve both God and money. Matthew 6:24. A hopeful perspective. Despite the despair, Thomas clung to his faith. He prayed for the world, asking for wisdom and strength for the oppressed. He dreamed of leaders who would value peace over profit, guided by principles like Isaiah 2:4. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Perhaps, Thomas thought, his role was to shine a light on these injustices, reminding others of the importance of truth and compassion. His mind would race, but maybe it was God's way of keeping him alert, always questioning, always seeking solutions. With God's guidance, even a chaotic mind could be a tool for peace and understanding.
There has to be a way. There has to be. I've got faith.